Good evening and welcome to NewsCenter at 9:30. I'm Jared Hall.
And I'm Stacy Russell. We have a new development out of New York. Fox News is reporting that the Empire State Building is being evacuated due to a suspicious package. Penn Station and all of 34th Street is also being evacuated. Employees are being asked to walk down the sidewalks in a single file line. We'll continue to follow this story and have more as it develops. The FBI has told a Florida man who hosted 2 flight school students that his former house guests were somehow involved in yesterday's terrorist attacks. Those house guests, described as 2 Arab-looking men, took flight training at Venice Municipal Airport. Charlie Voss asked the 2 to leave his home when he and his wife grew uncomfortable with them. Voss is a former employee at Huffman Aviation in Venice. FBI agents told him that authorities found a car at Boston's Logan Airport registered to the 2 men. In an effort to find possible supporters of Osama bin Laden, investigators are conducting interviews and seeking search warrants in parts of Florida. Boston's Westin Hotel was evacuated today after a bomb-sniffing dog found something suspicious. An FBI team is searching for suspects in the terrorist attacks stormed the hotel this afternoon. Police officers could be seen with fiber optic equipment, which is used to look beneath hotel doors. Boston police say the FBI is also investigating a hotel on Boylston Street. 2 of the flights hijacked yesterday originated in Boston.
Saudi exile and well-known terrorist leader Osama bin Laden is congratulating the people who carried out yesterday's deadly attack. A Palestinian journalist says he received a call from a bin Laden aide who says he, quote, thanked Almighty Allah and bowed before him when he heard about the attacks. Utah Senator Orrin Hatch says everything is pointing in the direction of bin Laden. Hatch says the FBI has intercepted information from people associated with bin Laden, which leads them to believe he's connected, but bin Laden denies any involvement in yesterday's attacks. Bin Laden is a wealthy Arab now living in Afghanistan and previously has been tied to terrorist attacks against Americans overseas.
A spokesman for the National Security Council says there's specific, credible information that both the White House and Air Force One were intended terrorist targets. He says the plane that hit the Pentagon may have been headed for the White House. President Bush addressed the nation again today, saying the attacks amounted to acts of war. President Bush says the United States is facing a different enemy now than ever before.
This enemy hides in shadows and has no regard for human life. This is an enemy who preys on innocent and unsuspecting people, then runs for cover. But it won't be able to run for cover forever. This is an enemy that tries to hide, but it won't be able to hide forever.
The president says the nation is ready to spend whatever it takes in the battle against the terrorists responsible for yesterday's attacks.
Well, the focus of this tragedy is, of course, now on the search and hopefully rescue process. Emergency teams are desperately searching for survivors and victims in the rubble of the fallen World Trade Center. New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani says more than 40 people are known dead, and emergency workers who were trying to assist other victims are likely among the victims themselves. Rescue officials in New York and Washington say it may be weeks before the death toll is known, but it's expected to be in the thousands. Officials say some of those trapped were calling family members from cell phones. Some 260 police officers and firefighters are missing and feared dead. Many still searching for family members say it's still too soon to give up hope on their loved ones.
My brother works in the 91st floor. My brother, and he's unaccounted for at this time. So I'm just, doing a lot of praying.
In the nation's capital, the death toll at the Pentagon is expected to be around 100 people.
The government is allowing flights diverted after yesterday's attacks to finish their journeys today. According to the Federal Aviation Administration, the only people who are being allowed to fly today are those who were in the middle of air travel when the attacks occurred yesterday. Tightened security measures will also regulate the number of flights that take off. Airlines were allowed to move empty planes, but all other planes will be grounded until further notice.
Hoosiers are now joining in the cleanup efforts as well. An Indiana task force of emergency personnel is in New York today to aid in the search for survivors at the World Trade Center. Firefighters, paramedics, physicians, and search dogs left late yesterday for New York. They're one of more than 24 groups nationwide that were mobilized yesterday in the wake of the attacks. And not only is the state ready to help, but many Muncie residents are eager to support the victims in New York and Washington.
One way they're doing that is by giving blood. NewsCenter Andy Carlson was at Ball Memorial Hospital today as flocks of people showed up to do their part.
This isn't the first time Jean Mitchell has experienced something like this.
It's horrible. I went through this for Pearl Harbor. and it just brings back so many memories.
Over 100 people had flocked to the hospital by 1 o'clock, some waiting for over 3 hours to give blood.
3 hours and 15 minutes.
3 hours and 15 minutes is it worth it to you?
Yes. You never know whose life you may save by just simply giving up a few hours of your time.
The tragedy has everyone doing whatever they can to help.
And they've been saying on TV all day how they need to have blood, so I asked him to come with me and tried to get all the rest of my brothers to come, but everybody's scared of needles.
Sharon Rhodes, the donor services coordinator, has been at Ball Memorial for 16 years and says she's never seen an outpouring of generosity like this before.
It's been a tremendous amount of increase. There's been a lot of interest. People feel so helpless at a time like this. It's a situation like none of us have ever experienced before. It's just a hopelessness, desolation. They're just total despair. People who have never donated, they're coming in, banding together all age groups.
A lot of people that it really hits them right in the heart, that's all.
Gasoline prices began soaring following yesterday's tragedy. The price hikes are being fueled by rumors of gas shortages, but a spokesperson from the American Petroleum Association insists there is plenty of fuel in all parts of the country. He says yesterday's terrorist attack should have no impact on gas supplies. Prices have more than doubled in some parts of the country, but here in Muncie, prices peaked at around only $2 a gallon yesterday.
The fallout from this tragedy is also the attention of tomorrow's Ball State Daily News. From our partners there, here are tomorrow's headlines tonight. Many vigils are taking place across the Ball State campus and also throughout the Muncie community. Also, many are wondering how the public can help in this time of need. And find out what Student Government Association plans to do to help the New York and D.C. victims. Read those stories and much more in tomorrow's edition of the Ball State Daily News. Well, it's a serious question tonight on the minds of many. Is war in the future? Everyone seems to have an opinion.
Coming up on NewsCenter at 9:30, we'll find out how yesterday's events are impacting the lives of people around the country and right here in Muncie.
Okay, class, tomorrow night's college night. Think about your needs.
I need to be challenged.
All over Ball State's campus and Muncie last night.
And those vigils continued today. NewsCenter reporter Kylie Gandalf went to High Street United Methodist Church this afternoon as it opened its doors to help the community find some meaning to the tragedy.
Inside these walls today, a service that brings tears, prayer, and hope.
He can transform despair into hope, and he can change sorrow into joy.
Attendants are handed an American flag as they walk in the door, a reminder of their country's strength. Even though people from all denominations came to today's service, they walked away with one common idea.
Togetherness, that we all get together. That's what God is doing, trying to get all his people together.
Togetherness, not looking at denominations, because we serve one God.
Pastor Hartman says he saw a need for this service.
Yesterday, several pastors were just talking informally and decided this was a time that we need to come together as a community of faith.
They prayed.
Another prayer was for our government.
They sang. And today they put their faith in a higher power.
And we just have to hope and pray that our world does survive, and I'm really sure it is, because it's in good hands.
Terrorists can shake the foundation of buildings, but these Christians say it won't shake the foundation of their faith. Kylie Gandalf, NewsCenter 43.
Students, faculty, and members of the community united in prayer tonight for the victims and their families in New York and Washington. One student from the Muslim Student Association offered kind words to everyone involved in yesterday's tragedy by saying, "We as Muslims would like to offer our condolences to the victims and their families." All of the association then came together and blessed our country in an enlightening and emotional Muslim prayer. Other students from the Catholic Student Union offered their spoken words by reciting verses from the Bible, poems, and other inspirational pieces. Ball State students covered the grassy area around the Frog Baby tonight. Their attendance shows their support for the victims of this tragedy and pride for their country by sharing their prayer and silence with everyone involved.
Well, U.S. intelligence officials say they have credible evidence in this case, and it is very likely an act of terrorism. So what should happen to those countries or individuals involved?
NewsCenter reporter Mindy Cahill talked to Ball State students on campus to get their reactions to yesterday's tragedy.
We definitely have to punish them for what they've done to us. By far, go to war by all means. Do whatever it takes.
I don't really feel we should go to war over the matter. There should be some actions taken where we can go find the people involved in this and give them some kind of a trial.
If it must go to war to be solved, then yeah, because a guy shouldn't, I don't see how somebody could live with himself after doing all this, so I think he should die too.
I believe that we should go to war once we find out who it is. I think that the people responsible should be punished and they should pay for it.
I don't like war, but I think it's a necessity.
If this was like the first incident or the only one, I think maybe we could settle it without going to war, but if there's more terrorist threats, then maybe I think it would be the best option.
But I don't think we can go to war if it's just like some faceless terrorist organization, because you can't just wage war against that. I mean, if we're going to wage war, it's got to be against a nation or a country or something like that.
Ball State students have a wide variety of reactions, but for some, the Trade Center crisis brought more emotions as the event hit closer to home.
Ball State student Kevin McCaffrey realizes now it may not always be a bad thing to be late. In fact, it may have saved his father's life. Brian McCaffrey, Kevin's father, was running right on time for his job at the World Trade Center Tuesday morning until he couldn't find his keys. After locating them, McCaffrey rushed to work, but he had already missed his usual subway train into the city. By the time he arrived, he was a half hour late for work. Now back here at Ball State, McCaffrey's son Kevin was sleeping Tuesday morning when terrorists made their first hit on the World Trade Center. Kevin's roommate immediately woke him to tell him what was happening. After he realized exactly what was going on, Kevin began to worry. He knew his father worked near the World Trade Center, but he had no idea his father's office was actually in one of the Twin Towers.
I didn't know until his wife called me probably around 10 o'clock, and she called me. The first thing she said was, "Did you know your father works in the World Trade Center?" And then I was just like, okay. And so she said, "Well, yeah, he's okay." And I was like, well, you should really switch up the order of how you're going to tell me that, you know.
Fearing public transportation may not be safe, Brian McCaffrey walked home after contacting his wife.
For much of the nation today, it's been a day of mourning and sorrow. As we've seen in New York and Washington, it's a day to pick up the pieces from the attack on America.
Nations from around the world have seen the act of terrorism and are starting to react as well. World leaders are offering their support to the United States today. The prime ministers of Great Britain and Canada have both reacted to the news. Canadian officials allowed more than 200 flights into their country, stranding thousands of passengers there.
The passengers have been very patient, and the Canadians have done their best to accommodate them. As soon as they will be permitted to have access to the destination, we will let them fly.
Officials in Egypt say they watched with horror the terrorist events of Tuesday. The Chinese government has reacted out to the U.S. Embassy in Beijing, sending flowers and expressing condolences for the victims. And officials with NATO say terror attacks in U.S. can be considered an attack on the whole alliance.
Well, John, despite all the tragedy that's going on around the nation, we've had some soothing weather. It's been peaceful.
There is some weather to talk about. Obviously, the cleanup efforts in New York have been blessed by good weather the last couple of days, but unfortunately, there is some rain on the way to New York. I'll have some details about that, along with our weekend forecast. Stay tuned.
Okay, class, tomorrow night's college night. Think about your needs.
I need a well-respected degree.
Sunset as we take a look at the campus cam from earlier this evening. Today's high was up to 82 degrees, our normal high 77. Sunset 6:53 p.m. tomorrow if you want to catch that from the roof of Teachers College. High temperatures across the state today, all in the 80s. 80 degrees in South Bend and Fort Wayne, high temperature 83 in Terre Haute. As we take a look at our current conditions in downtown Muncie, we are seeing clear skies right now. Temperature right at 67 degrees. Winds are calm under the influence of high pressure, and humidity still fairly dry at 73%. Let's go ahead and look at the big picture now. We see just a few clouds draped across the upper Midwest. What we're looking at, though, down in the Gulf of Mexico is Tropical Depression number 8. As we zoom in on Tropical Depression number 8. This is believed to be about to intensify into a tropical storm. This will be Tropical Storm Gabriel if that does happen in the next few hours, which is expected to. The center of circulation is right about here. Could dump at least 4 or 5 inches of rain across the state of Florida in the next couple of days. So people in Florida are going to need to watch out. Flash flood warnings across the state tonight and into the day tomorrow. Taking a look at our regional radar, just a few scattered showers moving into Ontario. Those were across the upper part of the lower peninsula of Michigan earlier this evening, but down to the south, we've stayed clear of those showers, although a cold front may be kicking off some clouds and maybe a few sprinkles later on tomorrow. As we take a look at tonight's weather map, there's a cold front which usually acts as a kicker mechanism for any moisture in the air to let out that moisture in the form of rain or thunderstorms. But unfortunately, our air is so dry here that we're not going to see any of that rain tomorrow. As we take a look at tonight's low temperatures, we'll still stay very comfortable in the mid-50s, but temperatures just off to the north under high pressure are going to be dropping down much colder. We'll see those fall-like conditions for the weekend. As we take a look at tonight's forecast then, we'll see mostly clear skies with a low temperature down to 56 degrees. A very light north breeze should be a very comfortable night for sleeping. Tomorrow morning when you wake up for work or you're in the morning class, increasing clouds with a temperature of 62 degrees. As that cold front passes tomorrow, we will see some more clouds in the area. The air behind this cold front is more moist, and thus a few showers back off to the west, some back off to the east, but we should remain dry. But things will cool off as we head into the weekend. As we take a look at tomorrow's high temperatures, we'll just barely make the low 70s and probably top out around 75 degrees. In fact, your Weather Center forecast is calling for a high temperature of 75 degrees under mostly cloudy skies, maybe a few breaks of sun in the morning. Then taking a look at your 3-day forecast, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday all look to be a very nice days, a mix of sun and clouds all 3 of those days. But conditions will be very fall-like as we see temperatures only topping out in the low 70s.
Looks like a fantastic weekend.
Very nice, but a little bit cooler than usual, so you might have to take along a light jacket in the morning.
Great. Thanks, John.
Thanks. All right, well, Andy Carlson in next with sports. And Andy, in lieu of everything, the world's kind of been shut down. Sports is no exception.
Yeah, most sports continue to be canceled as of tonight. I'll have the full list of cancellations when sports returns.
Okay, class, tomorrow night's college night. Think about your needs.
I need a cool job.
Yesterday's terror, most of the sports world has been put on hold for the moment as well. To begin, Major League Baseball has canceled all games tonight and tomorrow. The act of terrorism has caused 45 games to be missed, the most since 1918 due to the war. And Major League officials have not yet decided whether or not those will be made up. To football, it looks like most college football games will take place as scheduled on Saturday, including Ball State's home opener against Southern Illinois. The SEC, Big Ten, Big 12, Mid-American, Conference USA, Mountain West, and WAC decided to play their conference games and non-conference home games, with a few exceptions. The Big East, Pac-10, and ACC postponed their league games. The NFL is expected to make a decision tomorrow on whether or not Sunday's games will be played. The American Express World Golf Championship has been canceled for this weekend, along with other PGA Tour events. NASCAR canceled qualifying Friday for the New Hampshire 300, and Major League Soccer has canceled 4 games today. To Ball State news, the Ball State women's soccer home match Friday versus Taylor, the Ball State field hockey teams games at Maine Friday, plus the men's and women's cross-country teams meet at the Indiana Intercollegiates in West Lafayette have been postponed. BSU's softball team was to play a fall tournament at Purdue Sunday, but that has been canceled as well. In addition, the Ball State Athletics Hall of Fame banquet that was set for Friday will be rescheduled for a later date. The NCAA Executive Committee voted Wednesday to donate $5 million for disaster relief victims of the terrorist attacks on New York and Washington. The committee also recommended a moment of silence take place at all college games this weekend. Meeting by telephone, the committee did not specify where the $5 million would go, but it also said it would allow schools to reschedule games if desired. Some sports notes: Marie Ray Soper, the women's gymnastics coach at UZ Santa Barbara, was a passenger on one of the flights downed by terrorists. She was traveling on American Airlines flight that crashed into the Pentagon, according to a list released by American. According to International Olympic Committee President Jacques Rogue, the Winter Games will go ahead in February. The head of the 2002 Olympics said security plans will be completely reevaluated in the wake of the attacks on the World Trade Center and Pentagon. And lastly, trapped in Texas without flight or car and scheduled to start in Atlanta less than 24 hours later, Atlanta Braves pitcher John Burkett decided he wasn't going to miss the game. Burkett borrowed former teammate Rusty Greer's SUV and drove more than 11 hours and almost 850 miles before arriving with his team. That's it for sports.
Oh, that's amazing. Folks all the way out in California affected by this tragedy.
It's just unbelievable. Everyone everywhere affected, but we'll get back there.
That's right. All right. Well, thanks a lot, Andy. And John Shaner will be in next with a final look at your forecast.
Stay tuned.
Okay, class, tomorrow night's college night. Think about your needs.
I need to express my creativity.
Last look at your weather forecast here for East Central Indiana. Tonight, we'll expect mostly clear skies, clouds increasing later on tonight, low down to 56 degrees tonight. Then on tomorrow morning, you'll wake up to increasing clouds, a little bit of sun in the morning, then 62 degrees during the morning. Tomorrow's high 75 under cloudy skies, and then the 3-day forecast, the weekend looking very nice with temperatures topping out around 70 degrees and a mix of sun and clouds all 3 days.
All right, thanks a lot, John. Before we leave you this evening, we do want to mention at the top of the newscast, we mentioned that the Empire State Building was being evacuated. That was from reports from Fox News. Now we can report to you that that is a false alarm according to the New York Police Department. There is no bomb inside that building, inside the Empire State Building. Everything is fine there, and people are going back into the building. So good news there from that aspect. And tonight we do want to remind you, please keep everyone in your thoughts and prayers in New York, Washington, D.C., Pennsylvania, the entire nation. That's it for us on NewsCenter at 9:30. Thanks for joining us. I'm Jared Hall.
And I'm Stacy Russell. NewsCenter 43 is an official CNN student bureau. Be sure to tune in tomorrow at 5:30.